didn't actually. Wow.
It's so. I have to check it.
Welcome to the Lion Nation Podcast. Now to your host, Chuck Tracy.
Welcome everybody to Leander High School. We're going to have a special edition of tonight's podcast. I want to make sure that everyone gets a seat real quick. And Coach Price here, you're going to get to meet him here in a minute, but he's going to already start off here introducing all of his coaches here. So if everybody will grab a seat and turn your attention to Coach Price here near the podcast area.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Tracy and his staff for putting this thing on. This is something that's really cool. And I'm really excited that we'll be joining them throughout the year and having an opportunity to interact with you guys as the parents and the players on this team. I'm really, really excited to be here. And this first 3 weeks of this experience has been really amazing. That is in part to some of the people that I've been able to meet and work with. I want to introduce a couple of people in the back there. I want to introduce Mr. Simpson, our campus principal here at Leander. And our district AD, Jody Horman.
Thank you, Coach. If you'll have a seat here and put your headset on. Again, we'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's special edition of the Lion Nation podcast. It's a special edition not because, we've never had one in February, but because we are, the podcast team, and I think I speak for all of us, we're honored to be able to welcome the next era of Leander Lions football. So if you could applaud for that. It's obvious to me that the reason that you're here is you're excited and you want to be part of that next era of Lion football. For those of you who are unfamiliar, maybe you're coming from LMS or Running Brushy, this is the Lion Nation podcast crew. We broadcast the varsity football games live during the season in case relatives can't make it. Say you've got a grandparent that's in Oklahoma, but they want to see their grandchild play and he's on varsity, they'll have that opportunity. We also have a weekly coaches show, and that's the Lion Nation podcast, and that's what we're doing here tonight. It's a special edition. We're made up of parents of players and former players and students. So all of us have a tie either through a relative, a child, to Leander High School. And we want to make it a welcoming environment where everyone can participate, because in building Leander back to where it needs to be, it's going to be a community involvement. We're going to need everybody to be involved. And one of the things I've noticed is once you're a Leander Lion, you're always a Leander Lion. So if you know ex-Lion players, encourage them to come back, meet Coach Price here. A lot of them are out playing in college somewhere, or they're raising a family or whatever. But when they get in town, encourage them to come up here and meet Coach Price, because he's been spending a lot of time learning the history here of the school. So we're going to get an opportunity to meet him tonight. We're going to ask him a lot of questions. And so you've already seen him. He's our new head coach and athletic coordinator, Chris Price. Let's get a round of applause for Coach Price again. All right, Coach, we're going to start real simple. Tell us where you were born and a little bit about your childhood, your family growing up.
Well, before I answer that question, I want to make sure I say hi to the cheerleaders and tell them I appreciate them coming out. Give them a round of applause. Originally, I was born in Starkville, Mississippi. I don't really claim that because I got to Texas pretty quick. But I grew up in Fort Worth, graduated from Eastern Hills High School. I played football and soccer and tried my best not to pass out in track. Then I attended the University of North Texas, where I graduated with a bachelor in kinesiology degree, and immediately got into my coaching career, starting at Keller ISD as a middle school coach at Indian Springs. And so throughout my career, I've traveled to a number of different places and had an opportunity to work with a lot of different groups and a lot of different schools. So it's been a really good experience for me throughout my career, but I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. Now, talk a little bit about your high school experience as a player, things you can relate to some of the guys. I mean, you may be doing that over the next season, but how was it playing there at Eastern Hills High School compared to the way high school is now?
It's obviously different. There is a lot more focus pointed at athletics in terms of how kids prepare and the things that they're doing in addition to just being, students and athletes in the school. There's a lot of, outside 7-on-7 and a lot of personal trainers and all of those things. So those things are different. I think overall, though, the enjoyment that people get from participating in athletics, that has, remained the same. For me, I was kind of an undersized kid. I played safety. I played corner. Spent my junior year playing JV, which, those kind of things were pretty common growing up, and that's something in the attitude that's kind of shifted, and got an opportunity to play and start as a senior, and I just enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily just enjoy the game itself. I enjoyed really the people that I grew up with and the people that I played with. It was more about friends and family coming together, and that was the part I remember the most about playing in high school and that experience.
That's one of the things I've always said. It's about the relationships that you build with your teammates and those that you build with your coaches.
Absolutely.
And if you can do that, that's the hardest thing there. That kind of incorporates into building a culture of success. Talk about your methods. I know you're still kind of in the inventory stage of what kind of athletes do I have, what kind of equipment do I have, what's the schedule look like. Talk a little bit about coming into this mid-year and how you want to try to instill a culture that's appropriate.
Well, part of this is, I hesitate a little bit because I don't want it to get hard, but part of it so far has been pretty easy, and that has a lot to do with the kids that are here at Leander High School. I've talked to a couple of different groups, whether it's podcasts or interviews, and the first question was, how's the first week? And what I was able to see from the kids in the boot camp that they were starting was a group that worked really, really hard. So from a athlete standpoint, I have much less concern about that kind of thing than I do about, like you said, the inventory of the helmets and stuff like that. So they made it a lot easier to have this transition, and there are some things that, I'm going to learn kind of as we go, but the kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing in order to improve for the next year, and so it takes a little bit off of my plate.
Well, and one thing that we've noticed over the years of covering Lion football is the team may be overmatched at times on the field, but they're certainly not going to back down, and they work hard throughout the game regardless of what the scoreboard reads. And so you're coming into a group of kids that know how to work, and so that's a benefit.
Yes, it is.
Now back a little bit away from this program necessarily. Let's still talk a little bit about you. What drew you into coaching, or was it a person? Who were your mentors, and what drew you into teaching and coaching, and what pushed you in that direction?
I may be a little bit different than some other coaches that you talk to. I didn't originally start college with the focus on coaching. I was a computer science guy, but my brother was still in high school, and so I was able to go back and watch him play his junior and senior season. And as I was there were coaches on staff. He actually graduated from Keller. There were coaches at Keller High School that invited me to hang out and be around, and being around those guys and going back and talking to some of my former coaches, it was just something that after about a year of sitting in a computer science class, it wasn't it wasn't something that I thought that I wanted to do, and being around young men and young women, and watching the joy that they have when they're successful on something that they didn't believe they could do, that's been more fulfilling to me than anything else. So
yeah, it's a very honorable profession, and it's one that's probably especially in the teaching arena underpaid. So it's
AD is right back there.
Yeah,
no. Say that again.
Well, that's a statewide. It's a countrywide political debate. All you do is turn the radio on, and you'll hear about it. But you're coming into a situation here where you have an existing set of coaches. How much have you learned from those guys about the players and the school? And you have some, Coach Williams, I saw, well, he's back there. He's got a lot of years here at Leander, and, Coach Grissom has been around for a while. How are those guys helping you out in learning about Leander, and then, what's going on here and how to approach going forward?
All of the coaches on staff have been really good about kind of getting me in tune with the program and things that have, happened in the last couple of months. Coach Grissom and Coach Williams, obviously being here for a long time, they really have insight into how this school is operated, in the very recent past, and what it looked like a few years ago. And there are some things that, obviously have to change as the game changes, as kids change and programs change. But there are also some things that, that were done in 2008 that were good things and could stand to come back and be a part of this program now and today. And so those guys being, gracious enough to step up and kind of help me understand not just the football program, but the history of Leander has been really pretty awesome. And so every coach on the staff has chipped in to make sure that this transition has been very smooth. And I'm like I said when I introduced them, I'm very excited about that group, because it could have been a totally different situation, but they've made sure that I'm at least starting on the right track, I think.
Well, and the area that you're moving into, when I first moved to the LISD district, there were two high schools. You had Leander and you had Cedar Park. And, they've added Vista, Vandy, Rouse, Glenn, and there's another one in the works. It's affected the enrollment numbers. It's affected the participation numbers in sports. you've probably been told we were a handful of students over 5A. I think it was 7 or 9 or something like that. And so that could change, but you have a set schedule in front of you. Have you looked at any of those teams that are on the schedule and seen what they did last year?
Yes, sir. I've watched every game that was played last year at almost every level, freshman through varsity. And, I've been asked this question probably 2 or 3 times at this point. We don't control what that number is going to be, and that's not our concern right now. Our concern is simply making sure that our kids in this program are putting themselves in the best position to be successful. And so, I've watched the film, but I'm not talking to our kids right now about any of those teams. We're just talking about ourselves right now.
Sure.
So based just on what you've seen, just a broad stroke, how do your offense and defensive philosophies kind of tie in with some of the programs that you're going to be faced against?
Well, honestly, my philosophy has always been to do whatever you can to make sure your kids are in the best position to be successful. So, if you go back and try to pull, well, what does he run on defense? Well, when I was at Mahia, I was a 4-2-5. When I was at Keller for 3 years, we were a 3-4. When we figured out that we didn't have enough big bodies to be in an even front, and we didn't necessarily have enough, linebackers to be in a 3-4, we modified and we ran a 3-3 stack that was really modified to be just a high pressure system and getting kids running, because that's what we had. We had a bunch of athletic kids. So I don't look and say, well, I'm a 4-2-5 guy, that's what I do. I look at every kid in every season, and I'm going to figure out what system of terminology we can use and keep consistent so that we can be multiple, so we can fit what our kids can actually do. And that's the only thing that matters to me.
Well, and jumping, I know you're a defensive guy, but jumping to the offense, a new offense was implemented over the last year in the triple option look. And there was some success running the ball, but, we didn't spend a whole lot of time throwing the ball. And I know in speaking with you previously, you said you kind of want to throw the ball a little bit more. Do you want to talk about offense a little bit?
Sure. Offensively, just like you said, there were some things that happened offensively in the run game that were very efficient. They helped Leander move the chains, and, there's not a way to walk in and scrap everything and start over without setting your kids back. So my job right now, what we've been working on from an offensive standpoint, is figuring out a way to take some of those things that were successful in the last year, and then again looking at the talent that we have in this room and figuring out what additions we can make to give us those opportunities to throw the ball down the field a little bit, have some quick game packages to have some of those skill kids that we have in the program have opportunities to touch the ball. So we have to figure out a way to spread the ball around a little bit more, and we're going to have to be creative in all 3 phases if we're going to be successful. So, the work never stops. We've been talking about it since I got here, and, we'll continue to talk about it until we'll probably never will stop talking about it. We're going to keep doing it until we find a way to make sure every kid that we have has an opportunity to contribute in a way that gives us an overall chance to be successful.
Now, we've talked about you've watched a lot of the varsity games from last year and JV and freshman games. Have you had an opportunity to talk to maybe the coaches at Running Brushy or see a little bit of film of the 8th graders there and potentially the ones that may be coming over from Leander Middle School?
I have not been able to watch any of the film from Running Brushy or Leander Middle, but I have been over in both of their athletic periods, and during those athletic periods had an opportunity to watch those kids work in the off-season program. And again, just talking about the structure of Leander ISD right now, Leander High School and their feeder patterns, those coaches there have a plan every day. Those kids understand what work looks like and what it's going to take to move on to the next level, and those guys are executing and doing that every day. I walked into Running Brushy for the first time and was kind of shocked because the coaches were standing out in the hallway, getting to know me. And when we walked in, the kids were halfway through a student-led, athlete-led stretch. They had all of the plans that were going to take place, and they were organizing themselves. And so ultimately the goal of any coach, any teacher is to get the kids in a position to where they can handle some things themselves and understand what it should look like and can execute that without a ton of direction from coaches or teachers.
And that kind of lends to utilizing your upperclassmen to help mentor and coach along some of the underclassmen. Sure. Have you seen any of that going on? Are you looking to encourage that from the guys?
Well, again, starting the boot camp phase, that's something that has been introduced this year. I think it was ramped up a little bit for the kids, and the only thing I really focused on when I talked to them in the first couple of weeks is how you're interacting with your teammates. And it was really cool to see that if I said something in one of those first 2 meetings, they were doing it in the next opportunity for boot camp. So they understand, what it should look like, and they understand what good leadership looks like. And so I would like to see all of those guys that are going to be this year's seniors, have that trickle-down effect to where the juniors are leading the sophomores leading the freshmen are going back and leading those middle school kids as they come up. And I think that's how you build a consistent program over time, is making sure that you have a standard, and, coaches can talk about the standard. The kids have to live it. If the kids are living the standard, that's how it filters down to your younger programs.
But it's looking like they're living it right now, right?
They are, absolutely.
I think they're really hungry for success here. And, you see it when they're working. But, I mentioned it before, the school split. I mean, there's been external factors that have affected the program. But one of the things I've noticed is the players and the kids, they just keep marching and they just keep working. Now, we're gonna wrap it up, but I want to ask you a couple of questions that are a little related to the program, but more so all the folks in the audience. And then when we get through with these questions, we'll let them ask a few questions if they'd like. I'm a big proponent of community participation being the key, and that includes getting out and getting sponsorships from relatives that own businesses that for your son's team, and helping out when there's a fundraiser, and one of the big money makers during the season for Lion football is concession, and there's always a need for somebody in the concession area to assist out. If your child's not playing, and let's say you're a sub-varsity kid or a parent and your son's on the freshman team, well, make at least 1 or 2 times during the season where you go in and work concession during the JV game. You don't miss your child playing. Well, I guess it depends on where they're playing, but usually there's 1 or 2 freshman teams. And so, the key, though, is to find a place and plug in with board members, with coaches, and ask them, what is it that I can do to assist you? I mean, we're always looking for help, even with our broadcasts. So if that's something that interests you, make sure that you participate. And talk about the participation and the kind of help that we're going to need going forward for success, Coach.
Well, having an opportunity here in the last week to sit down with, the Boosters Club president of LABC and Mr. Maiden of the football side of it, I know that there are a lot of people that are interested in participating. I think, getting information out to you guys to make sure that you understand how you can help out and the things that we do need. There are going to be things that, like concessions that you spoke of, that are pretty consistent. You're going to need those every week, but there are going to be other things like, the blow up pregame.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we don't necessarily talk about all the time, but there's an opportunity for you to help. And, I just want to throw it out to everybody that's here. This program welcomes you guys and your involvement, and any way that you want to help, we can figure out a way to get you on board and give you that opportunity. So I know we're going to have a Booster Club meeting on March 13th. I could be getting my days mixed up. I'll push that information out. And so I would like to invite all of you on that date, and I'll post that on the team app as soon as I verify that date, and invite all of you guys to come out and just get to know the current members of the Booster Club. And then obviously we want your kids in the program, and so we want you in the program. If you guys need to get to know us to feel a little bit more comfortable with pitching in and helping out, swing by, stop in, shoot me an email, and we can figure out how to work together.
Okay. Does anyone out in the audience have any questions they want to ask Coach? Otherwise, you're going to have to listen to David May. There we go.
Hi, coming from a mom that's had a son that's had several head concussions and a younger son that's going to be coming up and through Leander High School as well, what do you have plans to do to help prevent head concussions further with these boys? What kind of conditioning do you plan on doing to help them not get those concussions?
Well, obviously with that being sort of a medical question, that's always tough to answer because you can find information on either side of what helps and what doesn't. Our job as coaches is to make sure that we are teaching them the safest, proper technique that we can. And for guys that are going to play offensive and defensive line, a lot of those situations occur when they're just, banging heads over and over again. That's not really what we want as coaches. We really want them to play with their hands and their feet. So us making sure that they're playing with proper technique will help minimize some of that. Us making sure that, the proper equipment is issued, the things that we all have always done are the things that we can do. And then, just being mindful of how a kid feels, where he's at, on a day-to-day basis. If something is wrong, making sure they understand that there's an open line of communication between the players and the coaches. They have to come tell us when, they're not feeling well. They don't need to, necessarily feel like that they have to keep going because that's what they think. We want our kids safe, healthy, and playing the right way. And, hopefully that those kind of things will help minimize some of those issues. And, we'll always keep working to make sure that our kids are going to be okay because ultimately that's what we want.
And I would just add, Coach, we've got a pretty good training staff here.
Absolutely.
Make sure you get to know them and follow the directions that they give because they do a pretty good job there. Anyone else questions for Coach? Understand that, and I'll add again also to dovetail on that, you'd mentioned equipment. I know that the goal is to replace the helmets at some point. That's a very expensive replacement, and did today's fundraiser give you any hope that might happen soon? Or?
Our guys did an amazing job with the fundraiser. It was a tight time schedule. It was new. There were a lot of things that could have gone wrong with it, and we raised almost $15,000 in about 40 minutes.
Woo! That's good. In 40 minutes?
Yes, sir.
That's quite a haul.
And so, there are a couple of other factors. The fact that our seniors are no longer in our program, so we basically raised that money with 3 classes, which is not typically how you want to run a fundraiser, but it was a situation that I want to start replacing some of those helmets and things like that. So I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. We're going to run the same fundraiser in the fall with just our freshman class. So that way that's our 4 classes for the year, and then eventually we will, here in the next year, have it to where all 4 classes are going through the fundraiser at the same time. So very impressed with what they did because that was a lot of stuff to throw at them in about a 2-week period, and they jumped out and they took care of business today. And so give them another round of applause because that was hard.
Well, and I think it's a reflection on them that they want to participate. They want ownership in the program beyond just being a player and going out there and working. They want to have – I believe that they want to have ties to Leander beyond their time here, and they want to be able to be one of those guys on the wall there in the athletic wing with, a TCU jersey and equipment or somebody like that. So, anybody else, Coach? Questions for Coach? We got one over here. Is the mic on?
It's not, but I heard the question. There are obviously going to be some other equipment things that we have to take care of. We're going to start replacing. My goal is to start replacing at least 20 a year. That might be a little lofty right now, just kind of where, with what we've done in terms of the fundraiser. But if you're replacing 20 a year, then you never get to the year that you have to replace 100. and that's the goal.
And the technology, it advances
so
every
rapidly.
year.
Yeah.
And so if you go and you replace 100 helmets, they could be obsolete in 2 seasons.
Absolutely. So it's a slower process with that particular piece of equipment, but keeping them up to date to making sure you don't have that big drop is a big goal for us.
Yeah, the mic's not on. It's a side button.
We are going to start spring ball on April 23rd, and spring game will be on May 17th. I released the date of 7 o'clock, but I do know that we have some student athletes who participate in choir, and they have a big event as well. So I may push that start time back a few minutes in order to accommodate those kids so we can have everybody in choir and then have everybody back for football. 7:07, we're going to start in the Cedar Park League. I'll push that date out. I don't remember right off the top of my head, but there will be 3 Wednesdays that we participate in that league, and this will be the first opportunity again to kind of start working with some of the new concepts that we have to install here in the next several weeks.
I'm going to add to that. 7-on-7 are for the little guys. What about the big guys up front? Or are we going to do any kind of lineman competition? I know they're pretty popular in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Coach Beef came to me the day that I talked about 7-on-7 and asked if we could host a big man competition here at Leander High School. I'm going to figure out the ins and outs on how we get that done, but I would love for all of our athletes to participate in something over the course of the next several months. So,
well,
yeah.
And along the same lines, Coach, while you're talking about them participating in something else, talk a little bit about multi-sport athletes and your opinion on them. I know you mentioned you played football, soccer, and tried to keep your breath and track. It's one of those things that for a long time over the last 10 or 12 years, people have kind of tried to push their children to specialize, and there's been some data coming out that it's important to participate in athletics, and talk a little bit about that.
Regardless of what science says, my opinion of it is simply that I want kids to compete all the time. And so the weight room is great, the conditioning is great, but the opportunity to compete against someone else is going to hold a lot of value for us when we play games in the fall. So I want every kid – you only get to do high school once. And if you want to participate in everything under the sun, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that happens. And I would like to see more kids participating in multiple sports or multiple events. That's why I'm willing to, look at pushing the spring game time back a little bit, because to me it is important to have a well-rounded kid. And if a kid wants to, play football and be in the choir, then, it's our job as adults to make sure they can do those things. And if a kid wants to play football, basketball, and baseball, we need to make sure as coaches that we do everything we can to push that kid to that and help him in any way possible.
Well, if you got any in choir, then they can sing the pregame national anthem up in the press box.
Absolutely.
So, anyone else? Questions for Coach? Well, Coach, I want to thank you for coming out here and exposing your history to everyone here and getting a chance to meet everyone. I'm sure people will still walk up and shake your hand and ask you questions. While you walk away, though, we're going to bring David Maiden up here. I'm going to ask everybody to stay for just a few more minutes. He's going to talk a little bit about the Booster Club and some of the things you can help. Thank you very much. A big round for Coach Price. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Maiden.
Here we go.
Okay, David. You're the president of the Booster Club?
President of the Booster Club. Just to let y'all know, the fundraiser was my idea today. So I gave that information
Pop
to
your
Coach
collar.
and everything else. So
now let's talk about Booster Club. You were part of the Booster Club last season.
Yep.
Were you in an officer position, or you just participated?
I was vice president.
Okay.
So
and you kind of just graduated to president this season because our former president, his son, graduated.
Correct.
Or will be graduating.
Correct. Evan Wells. He did a great job, just like I said, kind of during our banquet. He did a lot to, promote the program, get us in the right direction and stuff like that. He's still kind of a advisor right now.
Now, do we have open board positions that someone who may want to could step into?
So not necessarily that they're open, just like Coach was talking about. It's not necessarily that we need another president, another secretary. Those positions are filled. What we really need is, like Coach was saying, the blow-up tunnel. We probably need a crew for that. Concessions
you get to be on the field.
Is a big deal, yeah.
Twice a game.
Exactly. And you get to do the 2 fire extinguishers and get the kids all dirty or whatever else with the smoke. So right now we don't have any openings for, what I would say for the board members, but we do have a need for help.
And anyone can come to a board meeting.
Yeah. And if possible, the more we have, the better. And that's what we've been doing. I recruited Chuck, his wife Misty, to come on the board because they've been through this before. They've actually had kids here, so I wanted them to come in with some ideas that, hey, this has been working in the past. Is there any way we can do that? So it's been good. It's been good. But like I said, and Coach said the same thing. We really need more participation from parents. We really do.
And a lot of it's just to generate ideas, help with different things.
Yep.
We only meet once a month in the off season, right?
Correct.
And so you're looking at one Monday a month, even if you're not a office holding board member, you can still come up, provide your input, and participate and help build this program. What I'd like to see one day when I look back 10 years from now is say, you know what?
This was the point.
Right. This is where we kicked it off, and look at what has been built.
Sure. And just to let y'all know, it was kind of a last-minute deal. We finally got access through the team app. We kind of thought the account was deleted. Long story. Coach finally got access to it. So we'll be able to give y'all weeks in advance to say, hey, this is when the meeting is. This is what we're going to cover. Our secretary, Shannon Montez, in the back, we'll be putting stuff, the meetings, the minutes, stuff like that. Everything like our team wear, stuff like that. Amy Weingart in the back, who's our treasurer, Spirit Wear, we'll be putting that information, player packages and stuff like that. We're going to have a bigger meeting probably right after the summer, right before the football season starts, just to cover the player packages and stuff like that. So
it'll be kind of a meet and greet for the guys right before they get started. Right?
Absolutely.
What time and where do y'all typically meet?
So last year we actually had it in the PAC Center. As you came in, we just had it on the stage. We had a couple of slides and stuff like that. They were up there. So now that we've got access to the team app,
I think he's talking about the monthly meeting, though. We
meet
in the team room.
Yeah, we've been meeting in the team room.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's like a 6:30. It's first Monday of every month.
Yeah, for now. If we need to change it, we'll do it or whatever. But for now, we're just going to do it just once a month.
So, I encourage everyone to come out and contribute.
Yep.
So,
I mean, we really need participation from the parents. If y'all have ideas, please talk to. You don't have to come just to me. Talk to Misty, Lisa, Amy, anybody, and say, hey, I've got this idea. Bring it up. And we'll make it happen.
If you don't have the team app, you just go into the App Store on your iPhone or the Apple Store on your iPhone or the App Store on your Android.
Yep.
And download it's just called Team App, and then you search Leander Lion Football.
Yep.
And you have to set the notifications. They're not always the greatest at notifying you, but if you look at it, there's good information in there. Also encourage you to follow if you use Twitter or Facebook, look for the Booster Club Facebook page. I don't have do you know what it is, Lisa? No. If you type in Leander Lion Football in Facebook, it'll pull up the page. And same thing on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter as well, at Crazy Train. I always retweet everything that they send out. If you want, you can go back and look at prior podcasts and broadcasts. When we have podcasts, we encourage all of the players to come out. It's usually one night a week during the season. We generally hold them at restaurants who happen to be booster sponsors. So we'll have it at Bush's Chicken there on 1431.
Brooklyn Heights.
Well, they're usually not sponsored, but they
Yep.
give us a deal if we come in there. So we'll go to Brooklyn Heights
Yep.
sometimes. If you have an idea of a place to hold a podcast, we've held them at J&J's before as well. That's the kind of ideas we're looking for. If you know someone who'd like to be a sponsor and they'd like to get that once a week exposure during the season, we can hold the podcast all at one place. We want to talk to folks and work out what's best for this program and our kids. And we know everybody wants the same thing. So let's work together and let's make it happen. Okay?
Absolutely.
And that's conclusion of our podcast here. It's a special edition podcast. Look for a preseason podcast as we near. It'll probably be at the same meeting that you were mentioning. We'll probably hold a podcast that night as well. The freshmen, we may, if coaches is want to, we'll stream that telethon in the fall live on YouTube. And then maybe we can even generate some cash from around out of the area. So thank you, everyone, for coming out. Make sure you stop by and sign up for any of the participation things. Check out the Spirit Wear, and go Lions.